In 2021, the FDA received a total of 2.3 million adverse event reports. Now, of those, 2,400 were related to dietary supplements. So that means that dietary supplements make up 0.1% of the adverse event reports to the FDA, at least last year. And that statistic stays pretty true throughout year after year.
Yep.
Despite this fact, there's been a concerted push on Capitol Hill to pass something called mandatory product listing requirements for supplements under the premise that this industry is completely unregulated and full of all these nefarious characters trying to sell you snake oil.
Right.
So today we're going to look at the issue of supplement safety with someone who has an insider's understanding of the safety and compliance issues within the industry. Welcome, Ilan. Nice to finally put a face with a name. We've chatted back and forth, but now we get to actually have a little bit of discussion. So I appreciate you being with me.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And Ilan is the CEO of Alchemist Labs, a passionately committed contract testing laboratory specializing in plant authentication, botanical ingredient identification, and quantitative analytic services to the food and beverage, nutraceutical, and cosmeceutical industries. He holds a degree in chemistry from Cal State University Long Beach and has authored numerous articles on phytochemistry and analytical techniques for natural products and nutraceutical industries. He's on the executive committee of the American Herbal Products Association board. He's also on their Education and Research on Botanicals Foundation board. He was the founding chair of the Cannabis Committee and chairs the recently inaugurated Psychedelic Plants and Fungi Committee. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Can you tell me just a little bit about Alchemist Labs? What do you guys do? Where did you come from? And just give our viewers a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So Alchemist Labs is a 26-year-old independently owned, my father and myself own it, contract analytical laboratory. We don't make any products. We make sure the products you might be taking are safe, effective, and free of contamination. We started in a garage. My father was a chiropractor, acupuncturist, and had a line of herbal supplements, tinctures, and we actually were doing some quality control for our own ingredients. And by we, my father, when I was a child, I grew up with lots of test tubes and beakers and herbs and grinders and all this stuff in various laboratories. So we started doing some quality control for ourselves and failed a bunch of material, surprisingly, which was interesting because we had used it for many years from the same vendor. And how could it fail? Well, it failed. The vendor came back and said the same thing we did. Like, we've always bought it from the same guy. How could it fail? And we showed the results. And they said, oh, can you test this batch? And we said, well, we're a tincture manufacturer. And they said, yeah, but can you test this batch? We tested it. And then they sent another one and another one. And somehow we sort of became a lab. A choice was sort of made that lab testing, my father's background in chemistry before all the other things he did, was of interest. So we pivoted in '97 to become a contract analytical lab. This was long before the GMPs, which are the rules that the federal government has deployed upon the industry for quality and safety, were deployed. So 10 years prior to that, we started the lab and hovered quietly and carefully with very few customers until the regulations changed, defying that misconception about the dietary supplement industry not being regulated. It is, in fact, very regulated. Not well enforced, perhaps, but very regulated. And so what we do is we make sure that customers of ours, big and small, some of the biggest names you've seen on the shelves, all the way down to the two-person herb shops in Oregon, are buying the right material. Mm-hmm. So this industry is, very few of them actually make their own products. Just like any industry, it's subcontracted to various contract manufacturers and bottlers and encapsulators and labeling. And so at every time a product changes hands, we will test it and make sure it's at the right material, whether it's chamomile or kratom or cannabis or psilocybin mushrooms. We'll make sure they have the right material. We'll make sure it has the right potency. So if your green tea has caffeine in it, you want to know how much it is. We'll make sure it's within a certain limits that you're looking for. And then lastly, contamination, free of illegal levels of pesticides, heavy metals, and microbial contents. Fantastic. So that's Alchemist Labs in a nutshell.
That's a really cool story about the birth of your organization.
Thank you.
So as somebody who's obviously been around this for a long time, I'm sure you pay attention to what goes on in the media, and as do I. I mean, as director of marketing and communications for A&H, it's my job to sort of pay attention to what's being said about the industry. And it's interesting to me that if I didn't know any better, I'd think this is a really, really dangerous industry that we're
Right.
we're both somewhat involved in.
Right.
I did a
Right.
I did a quick web search this morning about supplement safety, and I got a ton of results. I'm just going to read you a few of the headlines. I'm sure you won't be surprised by any of these,
Oh
but
boy. Okay, I'm ready.
so first one, this is a great one. How did herbal remedy kill Lori McClintock?
Oh my God.
More adulterated health products uncovered. Adulterated supplements, 70%, 17% of herbal weight loss nutraceuticals sold contain synthetic drugs. Don't rely on Amazon for legitimate supplement, study finds, and on and on and
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
There are a ton of these. So, as consumers of media, and we all are consumers of media, it is easy to draw certain conclusions about
Sure.
the state of the industry. So I'd like to ask you, maybe we can start with the story of Lori McClintock,
Yeah.
who apparently died because she took it was a white mulberry leaf.
Yeah.
Right?
False.
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 So
False.
tell me,
False. False.
how does
So
this
false.
happen? How do we get these headlines, these storylines
Yeah.
where this killed her, apparently?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. First, that's not what killed her. Period. I mean, I would go on stand, and I basically have. I've been interviewed by the same reporter who reported the first case, and then she got a lot of feedback from the industry saying, "Look, you guys chose an herb that is non-toxic. I've read the coroner's report. I know her brain's weight. Her spleen looks, unremarkable. And I read the botany report, and they pinned an herb of all the herbs to choose." They should have chose a better one because it's known for thousands of years to be non-toxic. And in fact, I have a colleague of mine who wrote a recent monograph on that herb, and he ate the leaf. The moment he read that report, he started eating the leaf for breakfast with eggs. It's commonly used you add it with scrambled eggs and you cook it and you eat it. Now, I think what happened is that herb is known to have some sort of implication for diabetes or blood sugar level.
Yeah.
So perhaps they were looking for something that people take for diets, and they pinned it on her. I've got so much to say on this one. So, first of all, like I said, white mulberry leaf is not toxic, says the coroner's report, or says the botany report. Yet the coroner still chose to say death by white mulberry leaf. It was death by dehydration and gastroenteritis. The amount of mulberry leaf they found in her stomach was, it's about this big, an inch or so. If I took that sample that's been pre-digested to my lab, and we are specialists in identifying botanicals in powdered and all sorts of interesting forms. We've not done stomach contents, which is good. We don't go there. But I think that me, and I'm an expert botanical microscopist, someone who looks at plants under the microscope. I've done it for 26 years. And my team of 2 other botanical microscopists could not identify that material as mulberry leaf because of the digestion and all that other stuff. When I read the botany report, the botanist failed to choose to describe 2 really key features. So if you sent me white mulberry leaf, I would send you back a report saying this is white mulberry leaf and here's why. 2 distinct anatomical features that were not called out in that report. They are remarkable. They are something that you would say, what is that? That's interesting. It's different from all other leaves. And you would take a picture of it. You say, it's called a cystolith, like a little vessel that holds contents, and then crystals that are cell contents. They didn't mention that, which tells me they didn't see it, which tells me it wasn't white mulberry leaf. So I don't know how they got to that leaf because, there's a number of plants that are used medicinally in our industry, somewhere around 2,000. Of those plants, there's, let's say, half of them are leaves. Of those half leaves, maybe a tenth of them are used in diet. So it's almost as though they went to looking for medicinal herbs to leaves to ones used for diet. And I don't know who they are. My suspicion is, according to the article, they mentioned that it's very unfortunate and sad, and I don't mean to make light of it in any way, but the fact is they mentioned in her husband mentioned that she had been carefully dieting. I wouldn't use the word carefully dieting unless I had been not carefully dieting. Like, you don't have to say carefully dieting. So to me, I'm a detective at heart. I grew up on CSI. That was a peculiar word choice, and which leads me to believe maybe she was not carefully dieting, which leads me to believe, and my suspicion, and the toxicology report failed to look for sibutramine or any other diet known pharmaceutical drugs for appetite suppressant. They did the meth and the drugs, things like that. So she wasn't on drugs, but they didn't look for sibutramine. They didn't look for other diet pills, not supplements, pharmaceuticals. So my suspicion is she was taking something, perhaps not prescribed, perhaps even illegal. All sorts of possibilities occur with drug-to-drug interaction, which is why she was probably dehydrated, and which is why she died. And yes, maybe they found a leaf, and I don't think it was mulberry, but even if it was, mulberry leaf will not kill you at that level. So my foil hat is tingling. I've got all sorts of theories. I can ask, why is the congressman not seeking, why did my wife, like, what killed Lori then?
Right.
Because they probably know, and they don't want to make a light of her issues, and they're just going to tuck that away. But I'm proud of my industry and how we responded. We gathered up. We said, no. That you picked the wrong herb, first of all, and two, it's non-toxic. It says it in here. It's been used for thousands of years as non-toxic. Right. No one has ever gotten sick and died from it. It's just bizarre. It's bizarre.
So the fact that this incident turned into this giant media firestorm that really cast doubt on an entire industry, is this an anomaly, or is this something that you think happens regularly? We
get blamed. The dietary industry gets blamed for a lot, because first, this I claim we're unregulated. Complete nonsense. We are absolutely regulated. There's another statement that I hear that we're not regulated like drugs. Well, of course not. We're not drugs. We've been using these plants and herbs and mushrooms and roots for thousands of years. There's safety data for thousands of years, which is 1,000 times more safety data than you get for pharmaceuticals these days. Even current new drugs that are forced upon us have less safety data than white mulberry leaf, yet we're mandatory required to take it. So we get pushed on that. And the reason is because there's no FDA approval of our botanicals, because we're not making drug claims. So you don't need FDA approval. So, and I like to remind people that, a little pill called Vioxx killed 90,000 people before they took it off the market. 90,000 people. 89,909 was not enough. Someone in a boardroom table said, okay, once we get to 90, we're going to call it. And then someone called someone, hey, we hit 90. Okay, we got to call it. And then they took this drug, FDA approved, safe and effective, off the market after 90,000. I mean, if that was one of our loved ones, I'd be pretty upset, right? That's more than anyone will ever die from dietary supplements in all of time and history. Right. Forever in the future, probably, that we won't hit that number, right? But safe and effective, approved by FDA. So it baffles me. We're just kind of like the punching bag for issues of health and nutrition, unfortunately. And people believe it. Like you said, you read off those headlines. All nonsense.
Yeah. So is there a problem? I mean, because obviously I think we all have to come to grips with the fact. I mean, we all want a clean industry that sells a product that has what it says, that doesn't have other ingredients. Are there bad actors out there, and how big a problem do you see it as?
Look, I've bought a lawn furniture from a vendor that was garbage. You can buy anything bad. Quality costs money. I used to go to this German mechanics that had a little sign on the cash register when they took all my money from my old van, and it said, the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price.
I love that.
Bitterness of poor quality remains longer, and that's the truth. So you can find garbage material in any industry, whether it's a diamond, a car, or a chamomile. And yes, there are bad actors. Adulteration has been around since the beginning of trade, whether it was pepper, on the back of a camel 5,000 years ago, or salt. People have been cutting material. But the fact is, it's not prevalent in our industry. It's not as regular as one might think. And I'll say it again, quality costs money. So if you're looking for a product and it costs $8 on sale, and there's another one across the aisle for 40, I mean, you got to use your brain and think, like, why is there such a differential? Right. Now, one could be too expensive because they're trying to gouge, but the other one being so discounted and cheap, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, there are bad actors, but there are companies out there that are doing a great job. There are labs like us that are happy to help figure out who those bad actors are internally and help you navigate the supply chain and vendors to choose from.
So let me ask you, because we've talked a lot lately about mandatory product listing. Let me just get your thoughts on it as somebody, we have our perspective because we're a political organization and we always see things in terms of politics. You have a slightly different perspective. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Given the fact that, yes, there are bad actors. Yes, we all want to clean that up. Does mandatory product listing do anything to get us closer to that goal?
I don't think it does. I think someone said, look, we all need driver's licenses, but that doesn't mean we're good drivers. Right. It's like, this is going to make a list of people or companies and lists and products. Great. Yeah. Now what? Right. It's not. And for me, as a CEO of a testing lab, who, I'm a salesperson at heart, I consider myself, identify as a someone with a chemistry degree who's actually a marketing guy. So I saw this as like, cool, there's a list of all my customers suddenly, and I can go and find all the chamomiles and all the kratom and all the St. John's wort and hunt off that. So that was the benefit for us. But hearing from my clients what this would do for them and the work it would do with clients who have hundreds of SKUs, it would be a massive and very damaging undertaking. And it wouldn't, I don't really think it would address the problem of poor quality material. Maybe it's a start, and it's pretty, there's one trade association in our industry who's very for it, and the rest are all against it.
Yeah.
And I've tried to see both sides. Again, we don't sell products, so really I don't have a dog in this fight so much, but when my clients are hurt, we get hurt. And so again, back to that driver's license, I'm not sure it's going to achieve what is necessary. That, to just make a list of all the products, and there's not going to help stop adulteration. What's going to help stop adulteration is people actually doing the right testing, people popularizing their quality, and people stop buying garbage, cheap material. And that will start the process.
And do you see a movement within the industry itself to try to improve? Are you getting more clients that are coming to you and saying, "Hey, we want to let people know that what our products say on the labels, what they've got"? Are you seeing a trend in that way?
Absolutely. I mean, we're growing every year after year. In 26 years, we've only had 1 year of negative growth, which is a sort of an aberration, I hope, at least. And so, that speaks to, the industry testing more. The fact is, we are regulated. It is required to do testing. The FDA did a pretty okay job putting out the regs, but they were pretty ambiguous about what you need to do. So, stop signs mean stop, period. There's no interpretation of that. They left a little room for interpretation in the regs that guide our industry. So it is possible to do a substandard or bare minimum role of quality testing. But that's not the industry. The industry mostly does a lot of testing, and, we're growing every year. Sales are growing month by month. I've started with my father, myself 26 years ago, and now we're at 42 or 43 people. And labs are very popular in this industry. So I think it's absolutely a growth industry, and people are testing more. And there's, as I mentioned before, I'm a marketing guy with a chemistry degree. So there's value propositions. Like, you can't say in the dietary supplement industry that this product will do X, Y, or Z. That's reserved for drugs. You want to say those things, do clinical studies, spend millions. Now you can say may control appetite or suppress, blood sugar level or whatever. As a result, there's not much we can do when we sell our products. And I speak for the industry really in this, except for talk about the quality, which is a common misconception in the industry. And so I think popularizing the efforts in quality control has become a trend in the last decade, and it's definitely increasing. And you'll start to see more brands touting transparency. Some are actually doing it. Some just have a cool little logo and a clear bottle, and they talk transparency. Some big brands talk transparency with no transparency, but there's a lot of brands that are actually starting the process of sharing results with the consumers, even if they don't get it. Like, they don't understand what the hell they're looking at in this report. At least they have access to the raw data behind the product that's in their hands. And I think that makes them feel comfortable that it's been tested and is safe.
So in terms of consumers, you mentioned, the consumer that's standing there between an $8 bottle and a $40 bottle. What tools are out there that can help a consumer make educated decisions in terms of the products that they choose to buy?
So the good news, we all have these supercomputers in our pockets. I mean, basically everyone has a smartphone now with web access. I don't know anyone who doesn't at this point. So what you could do when you've got an $8 product and a $40 product is you go to the website. Sometimes there's QR codes on bottles that lead to data that's still, in its infancy stage, I would say. Only a few brands are doing that. But go to the website with those 2 bottles in your hand, and then look for a page, called quality, and look for more than just cool logos with a microscope and a check mark or something stupid like that. Look for actual data. Some of the brands are actually starting to post results and per lot number batch lookup. And it's funny, over here in California, the cannabis is, flows from the faucets basically, and you go to a dispensary, they lead with lab testing. It's one of their first value propositions. Look at the results. Look at the lab that did it. Look at this fancy report with cool graphs. We need to take sort of lesson from that sort of edge running industry of how they're sharing quality, and you're starting to see that. So back to the original question, to tell the difference between a good and a bad product, go to the website, look for data, look for transparency on quality. They're even starting to share where it's grown, who's making it, what contract manufacturer, and now even what lab is testing it, and even the results. Even if you don't understand them, look for that kind of data, and then you can make a choice which product to buy.
Yeah, I mean, I think transparency is the key in any industry. I had an interesting conversation about GMOs with Alan Lewis the other day, and
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
that industry is moving in
yeah,
that direction, right? Toward more and more
yeah,
transparency. Give the
yeah,
information and let consumers make the choice. And I think that's what we all want
yeah.
at the end of the day.
Alan Lewis and I are both, slightly different industries fighting the same fight. It's like
Same
just
fight. Yeah.
soapboxing it, standing screaming as the crazy guys in the room. But we're starting to make some traction, he and I, and make movement.
Well, we're with you. We're with you
Yeah.
because we 100% believe in transparency. So just final thoughts. What do you think the overall state of the industry is?
I mean, I think it's great being here for this long, quarter of a century. And I say that I had to trip my words, a quarter of a century of testing products. We've seen it all. We've seen the trends. We used to fail a lot of stuff. Honestly,
Yeah.
we failed. It was higher than 30 or 40% when we first started the lab.
Wow.
I believe we've made a big difference in this industry, just single-handedly our little lab about improving the quality of the botanicals and fungal material. And as a result of that and sort of campaigning for quality and transparency, the industry is getting better every single day, test by test. It's basically known that if you are going to make a product somewhere along the chain of custody, Alchemist is going to test it.
Mm.
And so if it's a plant or fungus, you better make sure you're working with the right stuff, because we're going to catch you, and we're going to tell the company you just sold it to, and they're going to return it, and your lawyers are going to talk to their lawyers. It's not worth it. Not worth to cut material by 20% just to save some money. So the industry is moving towards higher quality day by day. And then again, back to those original statistics of adverse events. I mean, the differential between big pharma and dietary supplements. I mean, people don't die in our industry. Sometimes there's an adverse event generally caused by drug-to-drug interaction, and no one's going to blame the pharmaceutical. They're going to blame the herb that was taken with the pharmaceutical. But no one's dying from our industry. No one's even getting sick. It's very rare. And
Yeah.
even when it is happening, it's generally, my suspicion, is caused by mixtures of other variables. Yes, there have been adulterations in our industry. In fact, we started this company in '97 based on our own testing, but there was a recall back in '97 because a company was making a product and they didn't clean their mixers, and some other ingredient got in the product and people got sick and went to the hospital, some heart issues, and that was it, no deaths. So, it's a safe industry, pushing safe products that are tested and researched and regulated, and it's getting better every single day.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been very educational. And I would like to thank all of our viewers, and just encourage everybody, do your research. It's easy to look at headlines and make assumptions based on those headlines, but just like we need transparency for products, we need transparency for the media. And we
Yes.
need to understand what's going on that side of the equation in terms of advertisers and who's, paying
Yes.
for what.
The grand puppeteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do your research and, continue to push for transparency in all aspects of our lives, because that
Absolutely.
makes everybody and everything better. So thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tim.